The Ethiopian Bible is the oldest Bible. The oldest copy of the Ethiopian Bible, which is full in terms of a Genesis to Revelation copy, is 14th century. So it's a long, long time after.
For 2,000 years, the world has heard one story about Jesus. He died, he rose, he vanished into heaven. But what if everything you were taught was only half the truth? Hidden in remote monasteries guarded by monks in the mountains of Ethiopia are words so shocking that powerful institutions tried to erase them forever. An ancient Bible, 88 books instead of 66. Texts that were never edited by Rome, never approved by councils, never adjusted to serve empires. And buried within those pages are teachings that challenge everything the modern church has told you. For 40 days after his resurrection, Jesus spoke truths about corruption, prophecy, and the inner temple. Teachings so dangerous they were almost lost to history, until now. While most Christians open Bibles containing 66 carefully selected books, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has been guarding something far older, a sacred canon of 88 texts written in Ge'ez, one of the most ancient languages on earth. These are complete manuscripts, meticulously copied by hand across centuries, protected by monks who believed they were safeguarding the very breath of God. To understand why Ethiopia possesses what the rest of the world lost, you have to understand what happened in the year 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea. Gathered under the authority of Roman Emperor Constantine, this was a political assembly dressed in spiritual clothing. The men who sat in that room were not simply asking which texts were holy, they were asking which texts were useful. Which writings supported a centralized church hierarchy? Which doctrines could be controlled? Which narratives served the empire? The texts that made the cut told a story Rome could work with. A dying Savior who modeled obedience and suffering. A church structure with priests holding the keys to salvation. The texts that did not make the cut told a different story entirely. Mystical writings filled with visions, teachings that suggested believers could connect directly with the divine. No priest required, no building necessary. These texts were not simply excluded, they were condemned. Copies were burned. But Ethiopia never attended that council. Isolated by mountains and deserts, already Christian before Rome officially converted, Ethiopia had no reason to submit its scriptures to foreign approval. So while Rome narrowed the canon, Ethiopia kept everything. The Book of Enoch with its visions of angels. The Book of Jubilees with its detailed accounts of creation. And the Book of the Covenant, a text that Ethiopian tradition claims records the actual words Jesus spoke to his disciples after defeating death. Not parables, not metaphors, direct teachings, final instructions. For 2,000 years, monks in highland monasteries have copied these words by hand.
Vivid wall paintings tell the story of Ethiopia's spectacular heritage.
Not for profit, not for recognition, for preservation. They believed that if even one generation failed to pass on the true teachings, the light would extinguish forever. According to Ethiopian sacred texts, Jesus did not simply flicker in and out of existence after his resurrection. These ancient texts claim that Jesus remained on earth for 40 full days after conquering death, not hiding, but teaching. During this sacred window, he shared what these writings call the heavenly scrolls, secret knowledge about the nature of reality itself, warnings about the darkness that would spread when his words were twisted into instruments of control. He taught them that death was never the true enemy. Spiritual blindness was. This single teaching transformed everything his followers understood about salvation. It was never about escaping death. It was about awakening to life while still breathing. But one teaching stands above all others in its revolutionary fire. According to these Ethiopian traditions, Jesus told his disciples something that threatened the entire religious establishment. You build temples of stone and gold, but the true temple is within you. Every heart that loves is a sanctuary. Every act of kindness is a prayer made flesh. If the divine truly dwells within each person, then the entire structure of organized religion collapses into irrelevance. An inner temple cannot be taxed. A personal relationship with God cannot be monitored, controlled, or sold for profit. A faith that lives in the human heart needs no building, no priest, no institution standing between the soul and its creator. This was not the message Rome wanted circulating through its empire. So these words were buried beneath centuries of silence. But in Ethiopia, they survived. The texts record what feels like prophecy, written specifically for our current moment. Jesus warned his disciples that in the days to come, people would shout his name while their hearts remained completely hollow. They would construct towering churches with golden spires, but forget the brutal simplicity of love. They would speak endlessly of righteousness while quietly devouring the poor. Reading these passages today feels less like encountering ancient history and more like holding a mirror to the modern church. How many leaders have fallen in scandal while preaching purity? How much wealth sits in religious institutions while their own members cannot afford medicine or rent? If these texts are authentic, Jesus saw all of it coming. Perhaps the most striking teaching preserved in Ethiopian tradition is this: let your silence speak louder than sermons. Let your body become a living prayer. This reframes everything we think we know about faith. It is not about performing correct rituals or memorizing approved doctrines. It is about transforming every breath, every action, every ordinary moment into an offering of love. According to these texts, Jesus told his disciples that a day would come when organized religion would grow corrupt and hollow, and when that day came, his spirit would rise again. But not from the places anyone expected. The Ethiopian traditions record words that turn the entire structure of institutional Christianity upside down. My voice will return through those the powerful ignore. Truth will come not from golden pulpits, but from broken hearts that still believe. The closest thing to authentic divine truth might not be found in Rome or any headquarters of religious authority. It might be found in a homeless shelter where volunteers serve meals at midnight with no cameras watching. In the cramped apartment of a single mother working 3 jobs who still somehow finds time to teach her children that kindness matters more than success. But the Ethiopian texts speak of something else, something coming, a fire, not the fire of apocalyptic destruction, a different fire entirely, one that burns away everything false until only truth remains. According to these traditions, Jesus spoke with absolute certainty. I will return, and my fire will awaken those who sleep in darkness. Ethiopian theologians explain that this fire is spiritual awakening itself. It does not destroy the world. It destroys the lies we tell ourselves, the masks we wear. The fire burns away pride and greed and illusion until nothing remains but the naked soul standing before its Creator. Perhaps the return of Christ has nothing to do with the sky splitting open while angels descend with trumpets. Perhaps it has everything to do with humanity finally waking up, finally feeling the heat of a flame that has been burning in the highlands for 2,000 years. Ethiopia stands alone in history. While nearly every nation in Africa fell to European colonization, Ethiopia remained free. This independence was not merely political, it was spiritual. When missionaries arrived in other parts of Africa carrying their thin Bibles, they found populations they could reshape. When they looked toward Ethiopia, they found a church that had been guarding sacred texts for over 1,000 years. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church looked at these newcomers and their 66-book Bibles and essentially said, "We were Christian before your nations existed. We do not need your edits." This is why Ethiopia preserved what the rest of the world lost. These texts were not removed from Western Bibles because they were false or poorly written. They were removed because they were dangerous. They spoke of direct mystical experience, of visions and angels and encounters with the divine that required no institutional mediation. They suggested that any human being could access God directly, and that suggestion threatened everything the organized church was building. In monasteries perched on impossible cliffs and carved into ancient stone, Ethiopian monks have spent centuries copying these words by hand, letter by letter, page by page, generation after generation. Not for wealth, not for recognition, for preservation. They believed with absolute conviction that if the chain ever broke, if even one generation failed to copy the texts and pass them forward, the light would extinguish forever. And so they kept copying through invasions and famines and plagues, through centuries of isolation when the outside world forgot they existed. Because of them, we can still read these traditions today. The forgotten fire kept burning in the highlands, while the rest of Christianity forgot there was ever anything more than what Rome decided to remember. The words have been spoken. The pages have been opened. In the mountains of Ethiopia, in the flicker of candlelight on manuscripts no one else could read, a different vision of Christ waited. One that spoke of hearts over temples, love over ritual, courage over obedience. And now those voices have reached us. How much of history has been shaped by power, by politics, by those who feared the truth? The fire that refused to die is still burning. What do you think about these hidden teachings? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe, because this is just the beginning of uncovering the stories they tried to erase forever.